Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're going to be taking a look at something both fascinating and a little bit unsettling. Okay, so are you ready to dive into some seriously cool tech?
Always. Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're going deep on AI-generated podcasts.
Yeah, this AI technology, it's advanced so rapidly that it's almost unbelievable.
I know, it's crazy.
It is. Yeah, what's really wild is we're past the point of just AI voices reading scripts.
Right.
Now AI can create entire episodes with like realistic synthetic voices on almost any topic.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about like those old robotic voices we all remember.
Yeah.
We're talking full-on episodes, synthetic voices, practically indistinguishable from, human voices.
It's wild how far this stuff has come. Like even just a few years ago, it sounded so robotic, and now it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're telling me, I actually, I tried out one of those AI podcast generators just to see, what it was all about. And I was blown away by how simple it was.
Yeah.
Just like type in a script, pick a voice, and bam, podcast ready to go.
That's incredible.
I know, right?
Oh.
It is surprisingly easy to create a podcast.
So like anyone could just make a podcast now.
Pretty much, yeah.
And they sound totally real too.
That's the thing.
What happens when anyone can create a podcast that sounds completely real, pushing any message they want? Like what happens to the truth?
No.
The potential for misinformation is huge. It really is. And it's not even just about the content itself, but like the believability factor. The AI isn't just like stringing words together, Like it's creating these coherent arguments.
Oh, yeah.
That might be completely false.
Yeah, but okay, so let's unpack this a little bit before we get to the scary stuff. I mean, there is a positive side to this technology, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But the accessibility of these tools, this is really democratizing content creation.
Right.
You don't need fancy equipment or vocal training or anything.
It's true.
Anyone with an idea can potentially reach an audience.
So it really levels the playing field.
It does.
I mean, that's pretty exciting.
It is, but
On the one hand, it's super cool. Like it really democratizes content creation.
For sure.
But on the other hand.
There's that other hand.
Yeah.
Are you about to get flooded with like AI generated everything?
Well, and how do you even sift through all that to find the good stuff? The stuff made by actual humans?
Right. It's a real concern.
Oh, it's huge. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But the haystack is growing exponentially every day.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not just the quantity of content either. There's the issue of potential manipulation and, misinformation.
There was actually a study from EPFL Lausanne, and they found that AI-generated arguments were actually way more persuasive than those written by humans.
Oh, wow, really?
Isn't that wild? And they tested them on all kinds of hot-button issues like abortion, trans rights, affirmative action, you name it.
Yeah. And the AI, won, didn't it?
One is an understatement.
Yeah.
The AI-generated arguments were 80% more persuasive than the human ones.
Whoa, 80%.
Seriously.
That's kind of freaky, right? What does that even mean for how we're going to, form opinions going forward?
I know, it's not just about ads anymore. This is potentially messing with our political views, our social attitudes, even personal relationships.
Yes, that's a whole other level.
And what's even more, unnerving is that it's not always obvious.
Exactly.
It's sneaky.
It is.
And it gets even more concerning.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little freaky.
Okay.
The study found that these AI systems were even more effective when they had, personal information about the audience.
Right. It suggests that AI might be able to, craft arguments that are way more effective at influencing people's opinions compared to anything a human could come up with. And when you combine that persuasive power with the ability to hyper-target listeners, things get really interesting.
Hold on, hyper-targeting, what exactly does that mean?
So hyper-targeting is using AI to tailor messages to individual listeners based on things like, their browsing history and social media activity, even their online purchases.
So it's kind of like getting a podcast episode that's custom designed to appeal to my specific interests and maybe even exploit my biases.
Exactly. It's a whole new level of personalization.
So this means that this technology isn't just for selling products anymore, right?
Right.
It could shape political opinions, social attitudes, everything.
Exactly.
Wow.
It is a little unsettling when you think about it that way. It's like we're just handing over our opinions to algorithms.
Yeah.
But is this really something new? Haven't people always been trying to, persuade and influence each other?
You're right. Persuasion has been around forever, but the scale of what AI can do and the sophistication, it's just unprecedented.
Well, think about Plato's dialogues.
Okay.
He basically controlled both sides of the conversation. He was crafting the arguments and the counter arguments to like subtly guide the reader towards his conclusions.
So you're saying these AI-generated podcasts could be structured kind of the same way?
Yeah.
Like they present a seemingly balanced debate, but they're actually steering the listener towards a specific viewpoint all along.
Exactly.
It's a pretty chilling thought when you put it like that. It's
Yeah.
like the AI is playing chess with our minds.
Totally.
You know, carefully setting up the board to ensure a checkmate in its favor. And the scariest part is we might not even realize it's happening.
Right, exactly. It's definitely a cause for concern.
You know, it's funny.
Huh.
There's this subtle element to this in almost every podcast.
Oh, really?
Like, how often do you hear one host agree with the other?
Hmm.
Right? Creating this illusion of consensus.
That's true. I never really thought about that.
Right.
It's very subtle,
It is?
but it's very effective.
It is.
You're right. It happens all the time.
We just did it.
We did!
It's like we're proving the point in real time.
We are both susceptible to these subtle persuasive tactics.
I know. It's crazy.
It is, but with AI, this can be done at an unprecedented scale
Right.
with incredible precision.
It's kind of scary.
It is.
So what do we do about it?
I don't.
How do we protect ourselves in this new world of AI-generated content?
That's the $1 million question.
It really is.
I think awareness is key.
Okay.
We need to understand that this technology exists
Oh.
and how it can be used.
But awareness alone doesn't feel like enough, does it? It's like telling someone to be careful walking through a minefield without giving them a map or a metal detector. We need tools like strategies to help us deal with this.
I agree. I think we need to develop new forms of media literacy. Skills for critically evaluating the content we're consuming. That means questioning sources and fact-checking information and being mindful of our own biases.
So it sounds like we need to evolve our critical thinking skills at the same pace that AI is evolving its persuasive abilities.
Right.
It's like an arms race for the mind.
Exactly. And it's a race with some incredibly high stakes.
Maybe this is a chance to become better thinkers, more critical, more discerning.
I hope so, because the way we consume information, it shapes how we understand the world, our values, and ultimately our actions.
Yeah.
And if AI becomes the dominant force in shaping those perceptions, well, we could be sleepwalking into a future where our thoughts and beliefs aren't really our own.
Okay, but even if we're aware, how do we tell the difference between a real podcast and an AI-generated one?
That's where it gets tricky.
I know.
The technology is becoming so advanced that it's getting really hard to distinguish.
So are we just doomed?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
And maybe we need like better detection tools or some kind of digital watermarking system
Oh, interesting.
to identify AI-generated content,
Right.
something like that.
Okay, those are all good ideas.
Yeah.
But speaking of detecting AI-generated content,
Yeah.
I think it's time for a little confession.
A confession?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
This whole episode, right now, it's entirely AI-generated.
Wait, seriously?
Completely serious.
Wow.
Bunch of our voices
Uh-huh.
created by AI.
That's quite a revelation.
Yeah. And you sound pretty good for an AI.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I mean, it really drives home the point about how convincing this technology can be.
It really does.
It's kind of ironic that we're having this whole conversation about critical thinking on a podcast that was completely generated by AI, huh?
Yeah, the irony is not lost on me, but I think that's kind of the point. This episode is like a Trojan horse. It's a message about awareness and about thinking critically, delivered in a format that's meant to be persuasive.
It's like we're using their own weapons against them, like a jujitsu move for the mind.
Right.
And by showing how convincing AI-generated content can be, maybe we're inoculating people against manipulation in the future.
That's the idea. It's a reminder that even with all this advanced AI, we still have the power to choose what we believe. We just need to be more careful, more discerning, and more willing to, question the information we're given.
I'm curious about something. How much of this podcast was actually written by a human?
Oh,
And how much was generated by the LLM?
that's a great question. I believe the core concept exploring how AI-generated podcasts could be used for manipulation that came from the human author.
Okay, so the overall theme was human-driven.
Yes, but many of the specific arguments we discussed were actually generated by the LLM,
Oh, really?
which surprised even the author.
Like what, for example?
For example, the point about analyzing Reddit comments and social media likes for hyper-targeting, that was all the LLM.
Wow, really? The AI came up with that whole industrialization of persuasion angle?
Yeah,
That's incredible.
it is, isn't it? It speaks to the incredible power and potential of this technology. And here's something even more interesting. Our personalities were entirely generated by the LLM.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You're telling me that our distinct voices, our conversational styles, our unique perspectives,
Yeah.
all of that was created by an AI?
Yes, the human author simply requested a script with 2 hosts and outlined some basic arguments to cover.
Okay.
The LM did the rest.
So it decided to make me more direct and fact-oriented,
It did.
and to give you this tendency to explore philosophical connections.
Apparently so.
So all those times you brought up the ancient Greeks,
Yeah.
that was the AI's doing.
It seems that the LLM decided that a penchant for classical philosophy would be a fitting quirk for my persona.
I love it.
Me too.
That's hilarious. It really goes to show how sophisticated these LLMs are becoming.
It does.
They can create characters, craft personalities, even mimic human conversation with remarkable accuracy.
It's both fascinating and a little bit unsettling, isn't it?
It really is. It's like we're on the cusp of a new era of content creation.
Oh.
One where the lines between human and machine are becoming increasingly blurred.
And it's an era that demands greater vigilance, greater critical awareness,
Right.
and a willingness to question everything we see and hear.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we risk becoming mere puppets in the hands of those who control the algorithms,
Right.
the ones who hold the keys to the kingdom of persuasion.
Wow, well said.
Thank you.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
I'm curious, who is this mysterious human behind our AI voices?
Oh, right. We
Yeah.
should probably give credit where credit is due.
We should.
The human author of this podcast is named Nebu Pukins, and he streams on Twitch.
Nebu Pukins.
Yeah.
That's an interesting name.
It is, isn't it? Apparently it's pronounced Nebu.
Nebu.
And if you're interested in hearing more discussions like this,
Okay.
but with actual human voices,
Yes.
he and his friend Stephanie often dive into similar topics on their Twitch stream.
Oh, that sounds fun. How can our listeners find them on Twitch?
Their channel name is twitch.tv Nebu Pukins.
Okay, so that's twitch.tv/NEBUPOOKINS.
You got it.
Okay, everyone be sure to check them out.
Yes.
But for now, if you really want to understand the persuasive techniques we've been talking about, try listening to this podcast again,
Okay.
but with fresh ears.
Fresh ears. I can do that.
Yeah, so pay attention to the subtle cues,
Okay.
the way we frame arguments,
Uh-huh.
the moments where we create that sense of consensus.
Okay, so it's like a little game, AI persuasion detection.
Exactly.
I like it.
So what are some specific things our listeners should be on the lookout for?
Okay, well, first, notice when one of us makes a point and the other one just agrees or reaffirms it without offering a counter-argument.
Right.
This creates a false sense of consensus, making the point seem more valid than it might actually be.
Right, like we're subtly telling the listener, see, we both agree, so it must be true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very effective way to slip an idea past the listener's critical faculties.
Wow. Okay, what else?
Well, consider how disagreements are framed.
Okay.
Is one side presented as like weaker or less credible than the other?
Uh-huh.
Are leading questions asked that allow one host to score an easy point?
Ooh, right?
These are all subtle ways to manipulate the conversation and steer the listener towards a particular conclusion.
That's really insightful. I never thought about it that way before.
It's all about understanding the subtext, the hidden agenda behind the seemingly neutral presentation of information.
So it's not just about what's being said, but how it's being said.
Precisely. And another common tactic is for one of us to act as a stand-in for the audience, voicing their potential questions or concerns.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine I say something that sounds like it naturally follows from the previous point,
Okay.
but it's actually a bit confusing or misleading. And then you, as the other host, chime in with the obvious, what does that mean? As if you're representing the confused listener.
Right.
Right.
To create that sense of camaraderie.
Exactly. And then when I explain my point,
Uh-huh.
you express enthusiastic agreement, subtly encouraging the audience to agree as well.
So sneaky.
It's a very clever way to manipulate the listener's perception.
Wow. This is all starting to make sense now.
Good.
I'm starting to see the patterns,
Uh-huh.
the subtle techniques that are being used to shape my own opinions.
That's the first step towards developing greater media literacy.
Right.
Becoming aware of the ways in which we're constantly being bombarded with persuasive messages.
Both overt and covert.
Yes.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of the onion,
We are.
revealing the hidden machinery of persuasion that's operating beneath the surface.
Indeed. And the more we understand these mechanisms,
Uh-huh.
the better equipped we'll be to resist their influence
That's a good point. This is all incredibly insightful.
Thank you. And there's this other thing. Be mindful of the source of the information. Who created it? What are their motivations? Are they trying to sell you something or push a particular agenda?
That's a really good point. It's easy to just take information at face value, especially from sources we trust.
It is.
But with AI becoming so sophisticated,
right.
We need to be more discerning.
We don't just accept what you hear or read blindly.
Right.
Question everything.
Question everything.
Look for evidence to support the claims being made. And be wary of content that seems too good to be true or plays into your existing biases.
Right. It's like we need to cultivate this healthy dose of skepticism. Tone.
Yeah.
The emphasis.
Yes.
The way certain words are chosen.
All of these things can be used to subtly nudge the listener in a particular direction.
Wow, this is getting really deep.
It is.
Okay, so what other sneaky techniques should our listeners be aware of?
Well, pay attention to when we subtly change the topic or avoid dwelling on a question that might weaken the argument we're trying to make.
Oh, so it's like misdirection.
It is.
It feels like we're fighting a losing battle against these algorithms.
Not necessarily. Just knowing these techniques exist is a big step. And then you can start questioning your sources, fact-checking, really thinking about who's behind the content you're consuming, like what's their agenda. And remember, being skeptical doesn't mean rejecting everything. It's about approaching information with, like, a healthy dose of curiosity and critical thinking.
It's like being a detective, right?
Exactly. Looking for clues, piecing together the evidence.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the biggest clue is the source itself.
Oh, totally. Who made it? What are their biases? What do they gain if you buy what they're selling?
You know, thinking back to that study about AI being so persuasive, it makes you wonder, what if some of the stuff we're reading, watching, even listening to is already AI influenced?
Yeah, it's a creepy thought, right? That line between human and AI is getting blurrier all the time. And as AI gets even better, it's going to be almost impossible to tell the difference.
And it's not just about podcasts.
It's everywhere.
These persuasive tactics are everywhere. Videos, articles, social media posts.
You name it.
It's true.
Like, think about it. The news you read, those social media posts you can't stop scrolling through, even the YouTube rabbit holes you go down.
Yeah.
What if some of that is already AI-shaped, subtly pushing us in certain directions?
Yeah, we think we're making up our own minds. It's actually kind of scary how much of what we see and hear could be AI influenced.
Which is why it all comes back to critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
We have to be on guard, question everything, look for those little hints that AI might be pulling the strings.
You know, it's like we need a whole new set of skills for this AI age.
Yeah.
Like media literacy 2.0 or something.
Totally. We have to learn how to spot the manipulation, break down those arguments that seem balanced but aren't, figure out the hidden agendas.
It's a lot.
It is. But it's not just about protecting ourselves. It's about making sure information stays trustworthy, you know?
Right.
So we can still have real conversations and debates, even with AI in the mix.
You know, before we move on, I'm still thinking about Nebu Pukins
Oh, yeah.
and his Twitch stream.
It's pretty cool, right?
It is.
That he does a show with his friend Stephanie.
Yeah, about similar topics. I wonder if we could ever get them on the show.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Real human perspectives
Yeah.
on this AI-driven world.
Exactly. Right. So to sum up, the best defense against AI manipulation is being aware, skeptical,
Yes. And engaged.
engaged, question everything, analyze the techniques being used, and don't be afraid to challenge the information you encounter.
I like that.
It's not about being cynical or distrustful.
Huh.
It's about being informed and empowered.
Right. Yeah. So I encourage our listeners to go back and listen to this episode again with a critical ear.
See if you can spot the techniques we've been discussing.
You got it. And if you can spot them in our AI-generated podcast, you'll be better equipped to spot them in the real world.
Exactly. So to wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI-generated podcasts,
Yeah.
it's been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey.
Yes.
We've explored the incredible potential of AI, the dangers of manipulation, and the vital importance of critical thinking in this new digital age.
And we've uncovered some surprising truths about ourselves along the way.
We have.
It seems we're all susceptible to the persuasive power of AI, even those of us who are AI ourselves.
It's true. But now that we're aware of these techniques, we can resist them.
We can choose to be conscious, critical, and informed consumers of information.
Yes.
We can choose to be the masters of our own minds rather than puppets of algorithms.
Well said. And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See you later.